Before we get into it, like and subscribe. Ask Reddit. Camp counselors. Who's the strangest kid you've seen? Counselor of 5 years here. I had a super duper stealth pooper this one year. Every morning, we awoke to find a freshly dumped turd in the center of our cabin. No one would admit to it. All the kids seemed pretty normal that week, and it was otherwise a great cabin. My co-counselor and I tried taking shifts staying up to figure out who it was. The phantom pooper remains a mystery to this day. I was on night patrol at my camp. The counselors slept in different cabins and the kids slept alone, so we had one counselor patrolling the cabins. I was opening the doors to each to make sure that they had all gone to sleep. Then, in one cabin, all the kids were sitting up in a circle and a few were completely naked. One of the kids was a bit more physically mature than the others. They were all around 8 to 10 years old. The more mature kid had some kind of liquid in his hand. He was also one of the naked ones. Each kid seemed to be taking turns poking the liquid that was in his hand. A few of it even poked it and licked their fingers. I can only assume what that liquid was. I slowly left. I was a camp counselor for 2 summers. This one kid would wear sweatpants every single day. Without prompt by the other kids, he would put his arms through his footholes and then pull the waistband up over his head so he looked like some weird 2-legged torso. He would then proceed to run around like that, chasing the other kids, grabbing their ankles. They were terrified. I once had a camper that would catch lizards around the cabins. He would then proceed to make them bite his earlobes and nose until he had several lizards hanging from his head and face. Then he would run around and scare the other girl campers. We had 2 changing cabins at my camp for kids to change into bathing suits and such before going swimming. The boys of the camp had a problem just going in and changing, and instead liked to spend ample amounts of time running around naked and screaming. So, we had to take shifts standing outside of the cabin making sure everyone was changing correctly. One day, I was sitting outside the cabin, making sure that they were changing with the girl that I had liked at the time, when one of the kids came out of the cabin and told me he needed to talk to me, but he didn't want the girl to hear. So, he whispered in my ear, "Dylan is showing people his butthole." Now, I have to get up, walk into the changing cabin where all of the kids are standing naked in a semicircle around a kid who was bent over a chair, spreading his butt cheeks and showing everyone his butthole. I didn't even know what to say, so I just left. I worked at a camp for a bit where we had a bunch of buffer activities that we did when most kids got dropped off, while we were setting things up and while we waited for the kids to get picked up. The most popular was our vast amount of Legos that we had, and the kids obviously took to making cars, spaceships, planes, and the like. There was a choice few parts for the really cool stuff, and as such, the kids eventually started fighting. No matter what punishments we tried, they would not stop fighting over the Legos, so I took to drastic measures. The kids seemed to argue about who had the strongest looking Lego man. I then brought in a zombie Lego man who had a jetpack and a space helmet and all that. He became the invincible Lego space zombie. I told all the kids that he was the most powerful Lego man possible and they needed to listen to me and quiet down or the Lego zombie would get you. As always, there was one kid who immediately does the exact opposite of whatever was said started, yelling and running around with his Lego plane. I told him the Lego zombie had come for him and took his plane. Then I made the entire camp gather around in a circle and they got to watch as the Lego zombie showed them exactly what happened to their precious Legos if they misbehave. I dropped the Legos from way up and let them smash on the floor. Then the kid who was misbehaving had to pick up his now shattered Lego creation as the pieces went all over the room. This fixed the problem until the kids started ratting each other out and then eventually started demanding the public Lego executions. It got to the point where they would start chanting, "Lego zombie, Lego zombie, Lego zombie," as I held the Lego creation up in the air before shattering it. Innocently urinating in our bathroom during pool time, I keep getting a whiff of something most foul. It's probably 90 degrees Fahrenheit in the bathhouse, super humid, so this smell just keeps pulsing into my nose. I finish up, do some sleuthing, and come across a wadded up pair of swim shorts. The smell is definitely coming from this piece of clothing. I get a stick and haul the stinky shorts outside with it. They are kids extra extra large. We only have one such kid. We'll call him Dookie Brown. They are covered and crusted in dookie, in case you couldn't have guessed. So I go to the pool to get my supervisor. He comes back to the scene of the shorts. We poke them with a stick. He gags, then says, "Oh my God, there's a similar smell in my cabin, near Dookie Brown's bunk." We go into my supervisor's cabin, no foul smell immediately. Then we get to looking around D. Brown's bunk. Sleeping bag definitely smells funky. We pull out his suitcase, more gagging. We open the suitcase. Oh my God. We have to burn this. We have to burn it. Dookie Brown's luggage consisted of no more than a few pairs of white socks and crappy clothes. Like crap-encrusted clothing. But the suitcase wasn't full, not even halfway. Turns out, lots of things. Number one, his mother thought we were going to provide him all of his clothes, so she just sent him to camp with socks and underwear and a couple of shirts. Number two, Dookie had been throwing away what little clothing he had whenever he got crap on it. Number three, Dookie Brown had no sphincter, or something like that. This information came to us indirectly from the admin office, and his mother didn't send him with his medicine that was supposed to make his bowel movements predictable. If anyone can explain, I'd love to hear how this works. I've been telling this story without knowing for 8 years. She just thought he'd be fine for 2 weeks. No biggie. Dookie Brown was so embarrassed that he crapped himself all the time, that instead of telling us, he just thought he could hide it for a couple of weeks. We washed his clothes, got him a new suitcase from Lost and Found, and tried to get him to wear a diaper until his medicine came. I did this for 4 summers. Did a lot of camp counseling a while back. Often worked with special needs groups. They were usually a great group to work with, but stories were inevitable. There was one camper who tried to leave his room all night, and we had to help the door shut from outside so he wouldn't leave. Eventually, he gave up and went back to bed. Or so we thought. Checking in later, we realized that he had disappeared. You see, there was an emergency exit to the cabin, but it was old enough that none of the alarms went off when it was triggered. He had gone out that way. We found him across camp in the kitchen in his underwear. There was also the kid who was in line at lunch one day and yelled, "Aye, Spider-Man!" and proceeded to jump out of the second-story window. One of the other counselors caught him by the leg halfway out the window and dragged him back in. Thank God. One of the kids at the summer camp I worked at was obsessed with pine trees. He used to carry branches and needles around with him. The pieces of pine trees he found would eventually take on their own personas. He would tell me, "This one looks like a young man wearing a hula skirt." And one day, when I saw him on the playground, he was putting the pine needles in his ears and told me, "These are my children and their house is on fire." I just slowly nodded and went to go play with some other kids. I was a summer camp director for 12 years. I could write a novel on the weird stuff kids do, but one in particular comes to mind. I had a little girl who basically grew up in the camp, sweet as ever and incredibly intelligent. Since we do not provide lunch for the kids, because it was a day camp, we would encourage the parents to pack a snack for their kids so that they could eat something at the end of the day. This specific child used to bring bags of dry cat food as her snack. Good old crunchy Purina. She loved that stuff and had absolutely no qualms with telling everyone how tasty it was to the disapproving glares of the other campers. Obviously, this was a concern of mine, so I inquired with her mother about her kid's interesting habit. Her response was a simple one. Yes, she has loved eating it since she was really little. Absolutely no concern whatsoever from the mom. You may be thinking, who the hell allows their kid to do that? Is there something else going on with that family? Abuse, perhaps? Nope, not one bit. And believe me, I looked into it. This little girl just loves crunchy Purina cat chow as a snack. I used to work at a Boy Scout camp. It was a fun and safe place for kids from the ages 12 to 15 to earn merit badges. Now, in order to give perspective, the camp has an east and a west side. These campers work together to win challenges against the opposite side. It's a healthy competition, usually. The sides compete in 3 major challenges: an air band competition, when you play songs without instruments and only use hands to symbolize their instrument; an intense water polo match. The campers choose 14 of their biggest and baddest swimmers/throwers to play against each other; and a capture the flag game, which is just pretty much 300 kids running around trying to find the opposite flag. Let's just say this can get very heated. The east side has already won the airband and polo challenges and are about to play capture the flag. The west side is now ready to do anything that it takes to win. The game begins and it starts as any game would. 15 minutes into this 2-hour event and things are already getting edgy. At 30 minutes, we have a report that a kid has been stabbed. Most of the staff are helping this kid because we are all trained in first aid. The wound is bad, a 2-inch gash to the leg by a lacerated blade. Let's just say we were all pissed to high heaven. After we cancel the game, we get more reports of things happening. Strangling campers for information, waterboarding, homemade handcuffs. A total of 5 kids got kicked out of camp forever, and East versus West games were never played again. One of the younger kid at the camp I worked at, around 5 to 6, complained that he had to go to the bathroom, otherwise he was going to go in his pants. So, I brought him to the bathroom, and he comes out about 5 minutes later all sheepishly. I asked what was wrong, and it turns out that he was in such a rush to go he forgot to take his pants off, sat on the toilet, and just crapped his pants right there.